Welcome to the Power of a Hobby. I'm your host, Dom Fenton, and today is our next episode. And we have Graham with us. Hi, Graham. How are you?
Hey, I'm very well, Dom. Thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
It's been great. It's been a while trying to get this going, as pretty much every other podcast at the moment. But it's great to finally have you on board. So, Graham, first question that I ask everyone: what does the power of a hobby mean to you?
Gosh, it's a big old question, isn't it? Really?
That's the reason we do it at the beginning. That's the
Yeah,
reason we do it.
I knew, and you know, I knew that was going to come as a question because I've seen your other podcast, and it's still thrown me. But a power of a hobby, it just gives a little bit of excitement, a bit of spice, something a bit different, and there's something quite nice, particularly about. I'm not saying my hobby's unique, but actually, hobbies are unique. But it's quite nice to have that unique hobby. It's a real conversation point as well for people. What do you get up to? And rather than talking about work, you can talk about your hobby. But it gives you something else to sort of get excited about.
And I think as well, it is about that excitement, and we've sort of touched off air. Actually, hobbies can be anything, and actually, everyone's different. Every person's different. Every hobby's different, and it's part of the reason I do this is to actually help me find a new hobby. So and it's great for us to be able to do this. So love that answer, and again, every answer is different because everyone's in a hobby for a different reason,
Mm.
and that's why this works. So for why don't you just tell people what you do? Why don't you tell people what you do?
As my hobby, or
No, just as an intro, just as a bit of an intro
yeah,
to you and what you do and what your
absolutely.
background is.
Yeah, so I live down on the south coast of England in a little place called Totton, just outside the New Forest, near Southampton. By day, I'm a senior leader in a special needs school. So it's my 25th year of teaching. Started off as a PE teacher and very quickly moved into special needs. I've worked in all fields, an advisory teacher, special schools, resource bases, and a whole variety of things. But currently, I'm running a small resource provision for the school that I work at for children with they've all got learning needs, disabilities, but they've all got some sort of adverse childhood experience or early childhood trauma. So they've all sort of SEMH type stuff. And then evenings and weekends, my spare time, he says, as a teacher, I run a health and wellbeing business. So I coach as lots of modalities. So I'm a personal trainer, a life coach, breathwork teacher, meditation teacher, a whole range of other things I use, mindset stuff. And my passion is working with dads in their sorts of 30s and 40s to help them a bit overwhelmed and out of condition to get them back into being the best dad they can be. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And 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 this is the thing, and I think actually everything you do is giving back.
Yeah.
Everything you look at is giving back to someone else. With obviously with my background in working for charities, especially around special educational needs as well, that is it's a tough but such a rewarding role.
Yeah.
You know, and I benefit from the fact that we bring schools together and we run events and it's fantastic. But we only see the child for that small amount of time. The
Yeah.
impact that must have that you have on those children just must be phenomenal.
Well, I hope that's the aim, I guess, of what we do. And I was chatting to this provision I run. We only set it up at Easter, where we moved from one provision to a new building in Southampton at Easter. And I was working with a lady called Shahana Knight, who runs her own business on therapeutic interventions and designing spaces. And so I work with her. One of the things we both agreed on was we're not teaching children, we're growing human beings, and it's that journey they're on. I mean, at the moment, I work with the year 7 to year 11, so 11 to 16-year-olds. But in the past, at previous schools, it's been from 2 to 19-year-olds, and you can see a young person go through such a long journey. And I know when they come in year 7, what they're going to be like in year 11, pretty much, and it's giving the parent that confidence that their young person's in safe hands, and I get them. And I'm excited for that journey, even if they're the most challenging young person on paper in their sort of first few weeks of sort of year 7. It's an exciting place to be. So yeah, you're right. You do see a massive difference in the young people you work with. And it's humbling. It's a real privilege to do the job. Definitely.
Yeah, I use that word quite a lot. And yes, we're not about this job, and this that could be a whole different podcast if I'm completely honest. But actually, working with the young people that we do and yourself does, when people ask me about it, I say it's a privilege.
Yeah.
I do say it's a privilege because it's a privilege to be able to do what we do and have a small impact on these children's lives, on these young people's lives as they're growing up.
And a huge responsibility as well. I mean, I don't take it lightly, the fact that these parents are placing a very vulnerable, very precious young person in my care and looking to me as the manager, as the leader, to make sure that they go home 6 hours later and I've kept them safe. I've moved them forward in their life. I've resolved their difficulties, and it's a big responsibility. But yeah, so that's why I say it is very humbling to know that I get to do that every day. And there's a lot of teachers who would, teachers are not all happy and rosy all the time. But there's a lot of teachers who are really struggling with teaching, and I get that. I'm just so privileged that I get to do what I do every single day.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, so we're talking about hobbies.
Yeah,
obviously
you've got my hobby, I can tell you that.
So you obviously full-time education teacher. Obviously, you have your own business as well. So for those that don't know what you do as a hobby, what's your hobby?
Micro adventures. Yeah, I don't know how familiar you are with micro adventures.
I'm not. But this is why I love doing this role. This is why I love doing these podcasts, because I get to find out about all these different hobbies. So I'm now going to give you the floor, to try and describe and let us know what they are, or what that means in terms of your hobby.
Yeah, and I think we're all familiar with the word adventure, and hopefully we're all familiar with the word micro, so a small adventure. I guess if I let's go back quite a few years ago, and my adventures are all big adventures. I mean, I've climbed really big mountains here all over the UK, in Europe. I've been skiing. I'm a surfer. I'm not just mountain, I'm a rock climber. I've done some multi-pitch rock climbing at quite a high level, whitewater kayaking and canoeing, sea kayaking, multi-day wilderness trips and things like that. Into big adventures, whether it's in the UK or the Pyrenees or the Alps or wherever. It's been wonderful, or in the Tatras in Poland and Slovakia. I've got all these stories I can tell. These really exciting trips, but they take significant time, significant money, significant resources, significant planning, and they're hard work. As fun as they are, they're really actually quite hard work to do. And so the idea of a micro adventure is that it's doing something that requires, fundamentally, as little time, energy, and effort and finances as possible. I think it's Alistair Humphreys who, if you look him up, and the listeners look him up, you might be familiar with his work already. And he talks about micro ventures, and he talks about, we work 9 till 5, but what do we do with our 5 to 9? And it's very easy to come home from work exhausted, chuck some food down your throat, sit down in front of the TV, stare at a big screen whilst looking at a little screen and not talking to those in the room with you. And that's the sad state of a lot of lives. And I talk from experience, having 25 years of teaching, and I've literally taught thousands of children. And that's what they're up to, a lot of them in the evenings. So the idea of a micro adventure is, what do I do of an evening? Or what do I do at the weekend to get me out and about and do something different? COVID was really good, actually, for micro adventures, because that really stopped us traveling any great distance, and we had to start exploring. But even before then, I'd be really sort of into the whole idea of a micro adventure. And for me, it's from simply to walk down by the river, down to the local, where Southampton, even just Southampton Docks, and where I live in Totton, and a place called Ealing and Goatee Beach, and just to go and look at the docks at night. The lights are beautiful. That's a great little adventure. Through to, going a little bit, driving into the forest, just going for a walk around the forest at night, at dawn, stargazing in the forest at night. Through to early morning walks with friends and sort of going and doing a bit of foraging, or we started off doing long walks, and then we started taking our stoves with us and taking the hammocks, and we now do short walks and long sits. But it's just doing something that's that little bit different. And I talk to friends. I said, "What did you get up to the weekend?" I said, "Oh, we went out for a walk in the forest with my mates. We only out for a couple of hours. We had a full cooked breakfast. We took a coffee pot and we brewed coffee, and actually I took a milk froth and I had a proper cappuccino. That's amazing." Through to, I grab my canoe and just go for a paddle locally. It doesn't have to be a big adventure. But the other thing that's exciting for me about micro adventures is I just get my local OS map and I go, right, where do I want to go on my map, on my square that I've not been before? What's the highest point locally? Have I been to that point? Well, I'll just go and find it. Let's go and have a look. Can I walk to it? Do I have to drive and park and then walk to it? Or Look at the New Forest, the sort of the four cardinal points, the furthest north, east, south, and west points of the New Forest. Let's go and visit those. What about where they cross in the middle? Can I get to that point? And even just to walk around my local enclosure, which is Ashurst enclosure in the New Forest, which before lockdown, I didn't really explore it that much. I tended to look at other enclosures, but just exploring that and going off, not following the gravel tracks, but just walking into the middle of the enclosure. Let's just go and explore, go off the footpath, just cut through the trees and see what happens. And it's just, you discover things that you wouldn't have seen had you not done it. So for me, that micro adventures is just getting out and doing something different. It could be an overnight camp, but that's a bit of a bigger undertaking. I do wild camping, but it's a bit of a bigger undertaking. But what can I do that literally requires as little time, energy, effort, and resources as possible? Swimming in the sea, swimming in the lakes, swimming in the rivers. Yeah, that's for me.
Absolutely, I absolutely love this because it's so simple. Or it can be so simple. Just going. I suppose a lot of it is just making the effort to go. You know what? This is what we're going to do, and we're going to point a finger at a map, and go right.
Yeah.
Can I get to there, or can I go? So so obviously you started. You've done some amazing things, and I'm just jealous sitting on the end of here now. Just some of the places that you've gone to and other things. When did all of this start for you? Obviously, we talked about going back in time and when you started these. What was it that sent Graham to a point of going, now, you know what, actually, this is what I want to do? Or is it someone? Is it a time? Is it just you went, actually, this is the way I want to be?
A mixture of all of those things, I think. And I think and I kind of wondered whether this might be a question. I was actually thinking about this earlier. Before lockdown, I've got some very good friends. So both my sons have gone through scouting. So I've gone through scouting. Naturally, as a parent, you get involved. I was a leader, an activity instructor on the fundraising company. The rugby club, I was the same, and just you get involved. So I've met a group of dads whose sons are the same age as my boys, and actually other dads who perhaps have got other children different ages, and we just hit it off, and we carried on socializing after. So first of all, actually, that involvement in a club has meant I, as a man, have got a really good group of male friends. And I think, actually, I know it's not part of the podcast, but male loneliness is a real big issue at the moment. And actually, it's been a godsend for us as men together. It's been wonderful. So we used to go off and would do overnight camps and bushcrafty things and weekends paddling or week-long paddling trips. But we had one particular friend, Craig, and I know you won't mind me mentioning this at all. He was struggling with his health. And so John, myself, Craig, and a chap called Mark, and there's one other chap who I didn't really know at the time. We agreed to go out for a walk just on one Saturday morning with Craig. We decided we'd just walk through the local rec down to the river and down to the waterfront. Craig really struggled with that because of his health. And John, my mates, by the time we got home and had a shower and change, he'd set a little Facebook group up called Talk the Walk. And he said, because when we're walking, we walk the talk, and then we talk the walk in Facebook. So he set this little Facebook group up. And we started, it was that was probably when it really sort of started to kick off, because we kept things simple for physical health, for mental health, for friendship, just to get out and do something different on a Saturday. We would go out for about an hour tops on a Saturday morning. Every Saturday we'd meet different part of the forest. We'd go for a little circular walk. One of us would plan it. And that's how it really started. And I think John he still is a big inspiration to me in terms of his adventures, because he's got a motorbike. His micro adventures often involve jumping on a bike and driving to South Wales and going to a bookshop to have a cup of coffee in Hay-on-Wye, and then we like pictures of John brewing a coffee at a castle somewhere else. Then he'd be back, and but he didn't plan it. He just got up and goes, where are we going to go today? Got on his bike and he went, and he would disappear for the day. Whilst it's a bit of a journey, it's still a micro adventure, really, isn't it? It took no effort in the planning apart from a tank and a half full of fuel. And I think that's where it all started from. And then we started to talk about micro. What are these called? And John went, this guy, Alistair Humphreys, he talks about micro adventures. And it developed, I guess, really from there. So, yeah, that's how it all came about. And here I am today, out and about as much as I can, weekends and evenings. It's great.
Yeah, and as you say, this, the reason we started this podcast is about finding hobbies that support you when you may be struggling with your mental health and everything else. So actually, as much as that conversation, that is so what this podcast is about. Because actually, as a you know, and I've got males that come on, I've got females who come on, but we all need something to support what we do. We all need that thing that actually we can, if we're having a stressful day, we can go to and we can switch off. You know, yes, mine was rugby for until I was 40, 42. But for that 18 minutes on the rugby field on a Saturday, I was playing rugby with my best friends. And actually, I had nothing else to think about apart from what was going on that field. Everything else around me just stopped. And actually, in terms of how these things work, as you said, isolation in men is massive. And I think personally, you know, I'm not trained around mental health. I've had my own experiences we've been in a very dark place a number of times. But actually, isolation's massive. Because, you know, you'll sit there and you fester over what's going on. You know, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a breakup, whether it's a redundancy from job, it could be anything that triggers someone going off. And actually, by having people around you like you've got, I think it's just massive. And, you know, it's really important that actually we look at that and we look at who's around us.
It's crucial. The friendships I've struck up. So as a group, we initially set up, we've each individually invited other people into our, you know, walk the talk. And this is what I guess we all have micro ventures together. So I've struck up friendships with people who I wouldn't ordinarily be friends with, but they've come into that group. And we've all brought in our own challenges from, you know, Craig with his health, John with his diabetes, me with really bad arthritis, and, you know, actually beginning lockdown, I was struggling to walk, and I've gone a long journey to get myself back to health again. Through to one of them has survived prostate cancer, you know, ex-service personnel, and we've all bought something. But we can go out and we can go for a walk and a brew and a breakfast, you know, in the forest, and we can talk about it, and that bonding is wonderful, and that friendship is great. I'd also add in there, I love going on microventures by myself as well. There's nothing greater than, you know, going out by myself and just being in nature, because that again has a different element to it, because it's about me being by myself as well. But I think for me, one of the biggest and the most powerful parts of it is that bonding, that friendship, is sharing it. You know, I love to go out with my wife and my two sons, and we will literally just take a rucksack, a hammock, a stove, food and drink, walk out into the forest, stick the hammocks up with our books, and we will just sit and chill. You know, the boys would used to play and build dens and things like that, and now they're 18 and 22. They still come out with us. And we'll read and we'll just listen to music on, you know, have their headphones in. I do a bit of plant idea, might do a bit of foraging. And those skills I've had to learn as I've gone along. I've always had an interest in bushcraft, but you develop those skills. And even things like leather work, you know, I've started working with leather. I've made, you know, pouches and all sorts of belts and other bits that I use. I used a sewing machine to make myself a bushcraft smock because I wanted to do one of those, all to help me with my micro ventures. You know, the smock I made would be 150, 200 quid in the shop, but 2 army blankets and the sewing machine and a lot of swearing later I've got. But I'd never used a sewing machine. My wife had to teach me. And that, for me, it's more than just that. That was an adventure in itself, learning to use a sewing machine. So
I love the impact it has on other people, though. So obviously, and we'll get back to this bit. So obviously, when you did all these other adventures, and you did the rock climbing and the skiing and the surfing, all these sort of bits, I'm assuming were you a lot younger? Were you, or is this stuff that's gone on in the last? Some of this gone on in the last few years, or some bit before that?
So I say skiing. I skied when I was at school, so minimal skiing, but it's a trip that I've been on. That was a big adventure. The rock climbing and the canoeing and mountaineering, I guess I started when I was left school. I was a football player, games player, an athlete, that side of things. And I left school, Duke of Edinburgh Ward, opened my eyes up. I did a bit of walking with mum and dad, but Duke of Edinburgh Ward was a big thing for me. Got involved in that. And through my teaching and sort of the outdoor ed qualifications I did alongside the teaching, I gained instructor qualifications. I worked at an outdoor centre as an instructor for a season as well. And so the friends I had then, I guess, we were doing sort of, the big exciting sort of stuff and wanting to sort of, push the boundaries and things like that. And, to go climbing in the high Tatras in Poland and Slovakia. That's a whole other story with a friend being arrested by the border guards 30 years ago. I mean,
yeah, that's definitely a different podcast, that one.
We hadn't realised we weren't supposed to cross the borders, but we did. But that was 93, I think that was. I was out in Poland and Slovakia. And tall ships race in bits and bobs like that. So those bigger adventures, I guess, were in my late teens, early 20s. But actually, what I've done, particularly with my paddling, my canoeing and kayaking, that has evolved over the last few years. So my white water paddling, that's something I do more now than I did when I was younger. I've just sold my sea kayak because my right hip, my arthritis, I just can't sit in a kayak anymore. So I've had to get rid of the kayaks. I'm open canoes now, quite happy with that. And so those, I do more of that now than I ever did before, but I think that's great because I can do those bigger adventures. I can still go down to, Devon and the West Country or South Wales or North Wales and go, do the white water stuff and the flat water stuff in the warmer summer months, and even just a local paddle. We do a Christmas paddle. We'll go out and we take a full Christmas dinner with us and we cook it on a riverbank.
Wow. Love it. Can you imagine, and I've had a number of teachers on the podcast. Obviously, a lot of my network are teachers because I work with schools and just by signing up to the Duke of Edinburgh, because I know it's a wonderful program.
Yeah,
I've seen the program. It is, as you say, could you really have imagined going back to then and going, actually, I'm going to sign up for this? That it would have then encouraged you to do all of, because I was talking to someone on one of the first podcasts who was doing some, Dan does steel drums.
Yeah.
Steel drum, and he does all that. And I went, when you started this, could you have imagined that you travelled all over the world? Exactly the same with you. Doing the Duke of Edinburgh, just by signing up for that, and not even just signing up, but putting yourself in it and embracing it and everything else. Look at what's happened.
It's massive, and I didn't realise so I first started Duke of Edinburgh when I was at secondary school, probably 14, 15, doing a bronze. That sent it was at the other secondary school and where I lived. It didn't really happen. It was just whatever. I don't know the reasons. College, I did my silver, and then I did my gold as in my early 20s when I was doing my PE degree, and I did it through Hampshire as an open award centre. And that's when I went out climbing in Slovakia and Poland, and it was a massive adventure for gold. To get my gold award, that's what it's about, an A level or something now, isn't it? I think that's what they suggest it is. So as a person now who reads application forms from people applying for jobs as teaching assistants and teachers, if I see Duke of Edinburgh award on there, for me, that's a big old tick because I know how hard it is to do it, and what it means. But in terms of the excitement it's brought me, it's great. I've gone on to run award centres and be an instructor myself, and it's great. I mean, I would say every young person should get involved in the Duke of Edinburgh. It's also a good scouting group locally because those things are massive.
And for me, everything is about the people I meet and being part of teams and stuff like this and groups. And you said about when your boys playing rugby or the Scouts, and you meet a whole group of dads, or you meet a whole group, and how important that is.
Yeah.
Exactly the same as doing the Duke of Edinburgh. Exactly the same with all these things.
Yeah.
You're in it together with someone else. And yes, you want to do your own thing, and it's great. Yeah. But actually, there's that power in numbers of people as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it is. And I'm very lucky because actually with those blokes I've met, I've got a group that do micro adventures. I've got another group of guys from the scouting side of thing, and it was Ealing Sea Scouts, and we've got a little WhatsApp group called Ealing Old Gits, and we get together, we'll go and play darts, we'll go for a walk. But I know if I've had a bad day or a bad week and I've had a gutful, I've got a beautiful wife who works with special needs as a school nurse. I can talk to her about everything. But sometimes I just want to go. I don't want to bring it home. I can phone any one of those friends up and say, Rob, Phil, Marcus, John, can we go for a walk? And we can get out and we can have a micro adventure. But I also know that I can talk to them, and taking it outside of a pub, because that's dangerous territory. I love a pint as much as the next chap. But sometimes you go to a pub and the conversation is it's the football or it's the that sort of laddish stuff. Go out for a walk in nature. You've got that deep connection with nature, and it's a very healing space. And I use it for my business a lot. And it's not about my business, but I use nature in my business. It's important to get out into nature and do the work out there. And so it's a very healing space just to have that privilege of being out with your best mate. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and I just think as well, you know, as a man, we struggle to sometimes open up. Obviously, I think, we're both in that part of the world where actually that's what we do. That's
Mm.
part of the work we're involved in, and I talk very much. Any public speaking I do and stuff is it's not because I'm qualified, but it's because I've experienced it.
Yeah.
And actually, if I can share things that will make a difference to one person, then that's all I ask for, and that's all I'll need to happen. But it's amazing how actually when we're doing stuff, we will talk. Because as you say, if you're sat just facing me now, actually we would chat, but a lot of people would, they struggle. But actually, if you're doing something where it's not face to face and you're walking or we're looking at doing a snooker club for men, or doing those sort of things where they're actually taking part in something and being able to have those conversations as well.
And because of that, you're okay just to stop. You've got, if we're out and about, we sat down having a brew and I've got a stick and a knife and we're doing a bit of whittling. We're all into our wood carving now. We don't have to talk. We can just be with each other. But then someone else can chip something in and we can have a little chat and then you go back to what you're doing. And it's not like we're sat with a drink in a pub and conversation is a bit stilted if you're not careful,
Yeah, no, I love it. I love this. Go on.
I was just going to say one final thing. We did. So, a friend John works for the NHS. He works in sort of the HR side of things in one of the trusts locally. And they got some money to run a wellbeing day or wellbeing for their staff. They could spend it however they wanted to. And John and I, as an aside, John and I had given a talk at a diabetes conference with John's Diabetes, and one of the people there was someone John worked with, I believe. And they sort of got wind of the micro ventures and things we did and said, we want to use our time as a trust to do a micro venture. In fact, we did it. We didn't charge it. We did it for free. Let's just go out and have some fun. And between us, we've got too many canoes and kayaks. My wife despairs. So I loaded up my trailer. I think we had about 11 boats or something, including inflatable paddle boards and canoes and kayaks. Took him down to Poole Harbour, met his team down there, took a fireball down on the beach, which we probably shouldn't have done. So I apologise to Poole Harbour. But we went paddling, we had coffee, we had a barbecue, we chatted. And it was a micro venture. For some of those people, they got to work with their team in a different way they'd not done before. They got to see them in a different way. And it was that outdoor environment. Some were terrified of the water and had them on, the paddle boards and the canoes. For some, they've gone on and bought paddle boards and canoes, and it's become a new hobby for them. And it's just sharing that. It's such a powerful thing. And it's, But you can tell by my excitement. I love it.
but this is the whole thing. I had another guest go, I can't believe I'm sat here talking about something I love to do.
Yeah.
Because we don't get to do it a lot.
That's it.
And that's why, and this is where this has come from, to enable people to do this. Yeah. I'm amazed at the time. We've already gone over time already. So this could go on for hours. Last question.
Okay.
So if someone came to you and didn't have a hobby, but when I really want to find a hobby, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
Take up crocheting.
I've got people on here who do crochet.
My wife loves crochet. She absolutely loves it, and I want to learn because she's so good.
Yeah.
No, for me, I'm going to say micro ventures because it's actually such a simple thing to do. People think you need a lot of skill to do it, and yes, if I'm going to go canoeing, you need a bit of skill. If you want to go off the tracks in the forest, you need to have the confidence in your abilities. But just get out there, look at your map, even if it's in a city, and just look at the map and go, not been there. I'm going to go there. I'm going to plan a walk around the city early morning when the city's waking up. It's a marvelous place to be. Hire one of those bikes and just go for a little e-bikes and go for a ride around the city at dawn. It's all brilliant. It's just different.
Absolutely love it.
Just do something. Just get out there and challenge yourself that little bit. And there'll be loads of walking groups and things anyway locally you could join that will give you the skill set and the confidence to get out there walking. But just get out there, or join volunteering scouts. They'll give you the skills.
And they always need help.
God, 100%. I mean, that's a big thing. Volunteering, volunteering something like that, and then you gain the skills and the friendships, like I did, and you can get out there and do it yourself.
Amazing, Graham. For those who want to be in touch or know more about you, where can they find you?
All the usual places. If you, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. I can send you across all that contact details. You can add in if you want to.
Yeah.
But if you were just to search, go on to, well, there's probably quite a few Graham Carters out there, I'm sure. So it might be easy just to, my email address, I'll give you that as graham.carter@Primal Flow Fitness. That's the name of the business, primalflowfitness.co.uk. And you can contact me through there, but I'm on LinkedIn, all those usual platforms and bits and bobs. So yeah, come and find us on there. Come and stalk me, follow me, interact with me, and ask me questions about microventures. I'd be very happy to talk and waffle on about it for hours. So
No, love it. Thank you so much for your time. This could have gone on for hours, and the likelihood there probably will be a part 2, because I just think we need to do it anyway.
And part 2 is going to be when you come down to the New Forest and I take you out on a microventure.
I will mark this on one of those. I can guarantee I will do that.
Yeah.
So we will go on a micro adventure. I would love that.
Or more than one. Sounds perfect.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. Graham, thank you. A whole weekend of, I tell you what, I'll get lost. It'll be amazing. It'll be amazing. Thanks so much for your time. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I'm your host, Don Fenton, and I'll see you again on the Power of a Hobby. Take care now. Bye-bye.